Hello, 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 and welcome to Getting Real with Paula. My name is Paula Alphonse, and tonight happens to be our first episode in 2022. And I personally would like to extend my best wishes to each and every one of you for greater inner peace, alignment, and success in whatever you choose to invest your time and energy into this year. Make it count. Make sure that if you're spending that time, that it is reaping you some great benefits. So this evening, I am speaking with Enolia Foti, author and international educator who has studied under indigenous teachers and elders from across the globe. She's sharing with us her journey towards a more compassionate and inclusive leadership and how it can actually benefit each and every one of us. So, good evening, Enolia. It is such a pleasure to have you on the show as we are on this early December. Am I lost? Early January. I'm still in 2021. Move out 2021. And we are starting or continuing, should I say, our transformation journey in 2022. So glad to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. And what a thrill it is to be your first guest of the year. I'm so excited to be here with you to start off 2022 the right way.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And that's what I was thinking as well as I was preparing mentally for this. And I'm thinking this is such a great guest to start off the year. So, can you tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and what started you on that journey into leadership?
So, first of all, I'm Enolia, first and foremost. And it's been an interesting journey. A really interesting journey. So just for the background, I grew up in Bayside, Queens, New York, born and raised native New Yorker. I went to school at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst and graduated with a degree in mathematics for my bachelor's. And quickly, I started looking for my vocation and wanted to really do something that allowed me to be creative. So I found my way into the IT industry, designing computer networks. And so in that respect, I ended up designing computer networks for a living for the next 20 plus years for a Fortune 500 company, of which I was really thrilled to be a part of. And I was really able to exercise the knowledge that I wanted to glean and share and play with technology and work in a technological field that was fast moving, up and coming. So it's really been a journey. I attained my master's degree while I was working with a family. I got married. I have 2 boys. And I remember my boys being in middle school as I was endeavoring to get my master's degree. And that really drove me because, mom couldn't come home with lesser grades than the boys. So that kept me in the top 1% of my class. I graduated straight A's with my master's degree in business. So yeah, it's been a journey in terms of that part of my life. And then there came a shift. And that shift took me on a journey that I just didn't expect. And before I dared to endeavor into that journey, I'll just share that it landed me exactly where I am now, which is that energy medicine is part of my skill set, along with life coaching, along with empowerment of people, individuals, for personal development. And I truly am an entrepreneur at heart. And I look at all of these works, and it has a foundation of indigenous studies and practices as the basis by which I work to empower and really teach people how to celebrate self, how to celebrate and go through their own rites of passage.
I love that. I love that. I love that. I'm not sure when you actually move into that thought process, but what was your experience like in the corporate world while you were doing this?
Wow. So it was really interesting because I wanted to do like everybody else wanted to do. I wanted to climb the corporate ladder, and leadership was my thing. I was, I was invited to be in the Select Dimensions of Leadership program. I actually went 3 levels of the Dimensions of Leadership program for the company that I worked at. And so leadership was key. But there was a longing in my heart. There was a longing in my heart, being an African-American woman. I wanted my traditions. I wanted to understand what my ancestry was. And that calling had me venture out and actually look for my first indigenous elder to be taught by while I was in corporate, while I was in the latter part of my career in corporate. And little did I know that when I decided to embark and fulfill that calling and meeting my first indigenous teacher, that it would change the course of my life.
Oh,
And it
did. It did. And I guess for me, my in your own words, because we've discussed leadership, we've discussed your approach or what you've learned in such a way of what you described to me as compassionate and inclusive leadership.
Yes.
Can you give me a sense of what that looks like?
Well, I'll give you a sense of it by telling you a story.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell a story of me, and I'm going to dare to be vulnerable here, because when I met my first indigenous grandmother, I was invited to a retreat. And I'll never forget this retreat. I brought many friends with me because I really wanted to learn from this particular indigenous grandmother. Her name was Grandmother Isabel. And I was so excited to be taught by her, and I had been honored by actually helping to plan the retreat also. So the particular story I want to share was the start of the retreat. And this for me was a life lesson because it was the start of the retreat. I had never been to an indigenous retreat before. I had helped plan it with another beautiful woman that worked with me side by side. Her name was Ellie. And it was time to start the retreat. And I'm like, Ellie, come on, let's go. We got to go and kick off the retreat. And Ellie's like, I don't need to be there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't need to be there. She's like, I don't need to be there. And I just couldn't grasp. I mean, you did all this hard work and you need to be there and you're not going. So I went to the retreat, and, there was Grandmother Isabel, and there was her number 2. Her name was Sandy. And, everybody was kind of milling around, and I came and I was immediately like, okay, everybody, let's gather around. Let's get started. Let's go through the agenda of what's going to be in the retreat. And I just started. And, I went on for a diatribe for about 5 minutes. And then Sandy goes, which is Grandmother's number 2. She goes, can we just take a bathroom break here for a minute? And I was like, oh, okay. So I rush off, go use the facilities. On my way back, Sandy catches me. And Sandy said to me, and she looks me straight in the eye, and she goes, do you think that you're leading this retreat? And I was like, no, but I just thought that, it was our responsibility to kick it off and get started. And she says, in all my life of attending indigenous retreats, it has never been started off the way that you started it off. Do you think that you're leading through this whole retreat? And then it hit me that I had done that thing that we do in corporate, which is you want to go for the leadership, you automatically just take the lead. You didn't ask permission. You just take the lead, you assume the role, and you step into it. And I realized that I had made a fatal mistake. And I could feel the tears welling up within me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had insulted the very woman that I wanted to learn from. And so then I go to explain to Sandy, no, I didn't know how to kick it off. I was asking Ellie, she didn't explain it to me. And that's the other thing too. We want to pass the buck. We want to say, oh, it's not my fault. It was so-and-so's fault. I didn't know. And I couldn't do it. I had to take full responsibility for my actions. And I explained to her, I didn't want to lead the retreat. I really wanted to learn. And she's like, are you sure you don't want to lead? I'm absolutely sure I don't want to lead. I want to learn. And so she said, okay, fine. We're good then. We have we understand, and we're in communication. We understand each other. And she said, okay, so collect yourself and then come back on over. So she goes back to the group, and they had to call me because I was just like so upset with myself and hurt that I didn't even want to go over. And I kind of held my head down and I walked over. And then before any words were even said, she whispers in my ear, hold your head up. There's no reason for you to hold your head down. Everything's fine. Mm-hmm. And I lift my head up, and then grandmother starts, and she does this beautiful prayer, opens up the 4 directions. And while she's continuing on with what we're going to do and how we're going to learn and giving us a teaching at the moment, she motions quietly, because I'm standing in the opposite side of the circle from her as we're all standing in a circle. And she motions for me to come over, and she has me stand next to her quietly. I exit the circle and I walk over to her and I stand next to her, and she holds my hand. And she smiles at me. And then she whispers in my ear in between talking, and she goes, you have everything to give. Smile, my child. We're just beginning. And that's when it hit me. Because I was so used to our mistakes being thrown in our face of what you did wrong, how you did it wrong. How dare you think, that you were going to do this, this, and this, chastised for what you did wrong. And here this woman just embraced me. And no one knew my mistake except me. And that was the first representation of that compassionate leadership.
It brings chills to me too, because I have been in the corporate world, and trust me, what you're recounting and the way you started that meeting, because you organized and planned for it, is what we usually do, and not even realizing that when we move in other spheres of the world, it might not be the way it's going to work out. And I know you have traveled a lot and experienced many different cultures as well. Can you share to you, what are some of the differences that stand out the most for you compared to the way the North Americans do leadership?
So what I learned, number one thing is let go of the sense of entitlement. Entitlement inserts your foot in your mouth every step of the way. And that no matter where you are in the world or what culture you're dealing with, if you sit, if you listen, hear, and receive first before you share, if you wait till you're invited to share, you will find yourself received.
Yeah.
And you come with a smile on your face, and you come listening. And even though you may know this and you may know that, and they're repeating things for you and you already know that, you sit back and you listen. and you will find yourself received.
I think it's beautiful from the perspective. I know my own experience when I've traveled abroad, and I think this was something that my father passed on to me when we were young, which was you get to an environment, and we've traveled a lot as a family when we were young, and he said exactly what you just said. You sit, you listen, and wait to be asked to share some of your journey. And that has served me in so many different ways that it's almost, how could I say, uncanny. So moving on to something which to me is a bit the same, but at the same time different. There is an African saying that goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. How does this relate to leadership conversation for you?
It's interesting because we in the West love to do everything fast. We love to tout how fast we can do it, how quickly we can do it, how quickly we can make decisions, and then how we can move and get it accomplished. But then what we don't realize are the mistakes along the way, the people that you hurt and impact along the way. And then the fact that you might do it at the detriment of someone. And I love when you say that when you want to go farther, you go with someone, because when you are with someone, they can complement you. It's not all on you. And the fact that their success is your success, and that you can have complementary knowledge, that you can stand side by side, be supported and support, and accomplish the same goal and still receive the same accolades without belittling, demeaning, and stepping on anyone along the way, without having to try to glean all of the knowledge yourself and carry this burden, when that burden can be shared if you're just willing to share and complement each other.
It feels as though we've been twins in some kind of life or something like that, because it's this sense where we have this idea of ownership when it comes to leadership. And my approach to life, my approach as when I was a manager, was really about empowerment. I don't need to be everywhere. I just need to know that my people are growing, are getting more skills, and are able to do what they are called on to do. And sometimes it's this part when you said about when you go further, you have having someone with you will actually support and complement you. It's the sense where there's this synergy when we see things maybe a bit different, and when we actually can feed off one another in order to be even better at what it is that we do. And that's the part I find that sometimes in the cutthroat North America's perspective that we lose.
Because, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
No, it's really interesting because we were brought up competing against one another, right? But when you look at it, we're all trying to accomplish the same thing, and it makes no sense. If we're all trying to accomplish the same thing, isn't there synergy in getting that group together that is trying to accomplish the same thing? Divide up the tasks that have to be done, support each other such that we all win? It just doesn't make sense to me anymore. And until you've worked in community, and that's what happened with me with the indigenous studies, is that for the first time, I started truly seeing the synergy of working in community. I started understanding the reward it felt like when we all arrived together and we all accomplished a task versus I had to stand out above and beyond everybody else because why? Why did I need to do that? When we all arrived, we all are rewarded. When we all are rewarded, we're all happy. No one's left behind. Nobody stepped on. Nobody's work is belittled. It's all there for the sharing. And that's an amazing feeling.
It is.
And I didn't realize that until I experienced it.
And to me, it's about experiencing it for yourself, but also recognizing what I think we all have some natural strength, and there are some, what could I say, ways of seeing things that would be different regardless, but at the same time, there's way more commonalities if we take the time to exchange and see how can we get to that win-win rather than have that conundrum or repeating the conundrum win-lose all the time, because that's not how you actually build communities. Empires, maybe. Communities, not the same conversation.
Absolutely.
I understand that you run retreats as well as workshops to assist individuals in facing their own greatest fears, blockage, or even challenges. And for each of them to actually reach their own vision of what they believe in, what holds them as a leader, both in their personal or their professional life. Am I wrong?
No, you're correct. You're correct.
Okay.
Because what we want to do is bring the best version of who you are as a being, as a leader, in every aspect of your life forward. Yes, you're absolutely right.
How would you suggest that someone starts doing that much needed introspective work when we know that in our societies nowadays, with all of the social media, all of the technology, we tend to spend way more time and energy on showing off and external appearances than taking the pulse within. So how can someone change?
So it's interesting because we may spend time checking the pulses and everything else, but people can see through the facade really quickly. If you are not a happy person, it's seen. You can think that you're putting on the face, and you can think that everybody sees what you want them to see. But believe me, you're seen. You're seen as you are. What's in your heart? You just can't hide it. So first of all, I would say, make yourself a priority. It is not selfish, it is self-love. Because when you play the martyr role and you put everybody else in front of you, then you cannot make the time. You will never have a justification of the time that you need to spend to self-reflect. So the first and foremost that I would say is that you have to make yourself a priority. The second thing that I would say is that we love to create stories as individuals and human beings. We create a story for everything. You know, we create a story of why we can't do this. We create a story of why we can't do that. We create a story of why it's taken us so long. You know, we'll create a story of, oh, I can only spend 5 minutes on myself. We'll create a story for everything. Stop with the stories. Stop with the stories. If you're a priority, there is no story, justification, or anything that prevents you from accomplishing what you need to accomplish, what you've set out for yourself. The third thing that I would say is look in the mirror and be honest with what you see. If there are aspects of yourself that you do not like, acknowledge it. I like this part of myself. I like this part of myself. This I don't like so much. This I don't like so much. It's like the first stage of alchemy.
Yeah.
You have calcination. You have everything thrown in as a potpourri. You have to look at it. If you don't look at every aspect of yourself, the parts you like, the parts you don't like, the parts that you would lie to yourself about, and be honest. Acknowledge every aspect of yourself. And then I'm going to make it akin to alchemy again, then look at stage 2, which is separation. Okay, these are the parts I like, these are the parts I'd like to work on. Not I dislike, I'd like to work on.
Yeah.
Because we have to learn to like every aspect of ourselves, good, bad, or indifferent. I have to like my insecure side. I have to like, if I can be a victim, I have to like my victim side. I have to learn to like all aspects of myself. Now, do I have to be a victim? No. Do I have to be insecure? No. But I have to acknowledge if that is a part of who my personality is or who I am, I need to acknowledge it.
The idea for me is when I hear this is at times we seem to forget that there are multiple layers for each and every one of us. And when we do that, the challenge is, have we, how could I say, have we forgotten what truly matters? And are we ignoring side of ourselves that are pertinent? And that's huge. That is huge. So I'll ask, because I know you had mentioned that there might have been an exercise that you wanted to run us through. And I think that was the shedding of the roles, that if I remember well.
Yes, it is. I would love to run us through that exercise.
Okay. Am I supposed to be your guinea pig?
Yes, you can if you don't mind.
And if I discover something I don't like, I always have a Kleenex handy and work my thing.
Yes, yes. So at this moment, what I'd like to do is I'd invite you to close your eyes just for a moment and hold on to my voice. And just take a deep breath in, filling your lungs as full as you can and releasing it. And one more deep, deep breath in, filling that belly as much as possible and holding on to that breath for a moment. And then releasing it. And then I'd like you to bring your focus to your heart space, that beautiful place where you dwell. And I'd like to invite you to see yourself sitting next to a beautiful campfire inside the space of your heart. It's night, and it's a beautiful fire, and that fire just represents you and all that you are. And as if that fire were giving off heat, I want you to think about the roles that you play like they were layers of clothes. I invite you to see that role as the mother, the daughter, the auntie. And let's just start off with some of the generic roles that we know that we play every day. Let's just take off that hat. That hat as the daughter. That hat as the wife. That hat as the aunt. And then I want you to go a little bit deeper, and I want you to remove that hat as the employer or the employee. That hat as the pleaser. That hat as the one who has to take care of all of the things in the household, or the errands that you run, or the cleaning that has to be done. That hat as the gardener or the cook. all of the roles, take them off, one by one. And then I'd like you to bring your focus right to that fire and seeing that reflection of just you. But you without the roles, you without the responsibility. Who are you? Who are you without the roles, the responsibilities, the hats that we wear? What is the emotion that you emote as you see this side of yourself, absent of all of the responsibilities and roles that define what we do, but not who we are? I want you to think of love. Love in its innocence. Love when it's birthed. Love when it's first experienced. Love is multidimensional. We come in with it as part of our energy foundation. It is the other experiences that shape how we love, what we love, or who we love. But at the sheer nakedness of our energy being, of who we are, at the core of this physical temple, we are love. I want you to feel its vibration. I want you to allow it to resonate through your being like a wave or a pebble that generates the waves in every direction. And as you feel this love, and as you emanate this love, I want you to put on your leadership hat. You see that the love can emanate through that leadership. It can resonate through that leadership. No matter what hat you choose to put on, if at the core of your being you recognize that which you are, that of which you are will resonate through no matter what role and responsibility you take on. So at the core of your being, acknowledge this love. Acknowledge the light that encompasses the love. Acknowledge the fire behind that love and the desire behind that love and that light and that truth. This is what it feels like, untouched, untainted, at the core. Sit in this energy for a moment. And whenever you're ready, I invite you to take a deep breath in and release it. And one more time, that deep, deep breath in. And release. And whenever you're ready, open your eyes.
That was good. Am I supposed to tell you what I saw?
Yes, please.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. And I'm in there and I'm like, oh my God, I never thought about me like that. I saw myself as a, you know, when you play relay, you do relay, course relay. Okay. I saw myself as the baton, which is something that I pass on to someone else. And when I think about what it is that I do, I never, 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 never thought about it this way. That's what I do. Whatever it is that I learn, whatever it is that I try to accomplish, is to pass it on to someone else, and then you go do yours with whatever it is that is of use to you. So being an educator, it just feels like, yes, okay, I get it. So it's, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I never, ever, ever, ever. And it makes me laugh in a way as well, because you know when you say people see things with you that you don't really see. There are times where I interact with my kids, and one in particular keeps reminding me. By the way, I just want to let you know I am not one of your students. So it feels as though when I'm hearing that, what it is that whatever it is that I'm trying, the baton that I'm trying to do, I'm actually doing it in multiple environments. Thank you.
You are so welcome. And if you didn't get anything else out of that, see, that's why we're able to change what it is that we bring forward. Because if we can go back to the very simplistic core of who we are,
Yeah,
without all of the stuff, it's very simple. We're love. And then everything else that we put on, we layer on. So take the layers off. And that's what we do. We peel, or that's what I do. I peel back those layers. I help you peel back those layers. And then they don't have to be piled on the way that they were. We can reshape them. We can look at it a different way. We can look through it, through the role, a different way.
And it's interesting because you started that conversation as a mother, a daughter, a aunt, and things like that. And for me, those are all, as females, those are roles that are almost like ingrained in our genes. And what it triggered for me as we were doing this, yes, there is love all the way through, but there's more to me, which I always knew consciously, but there's more to me than doing this part. And what it triggered for me as well is that sense of, where do you want to spend your time and energy? And when my daughter makes the comment about me not being a student, this tells me that I am trying still to pass on those batons, and wherever I read, I hear something and I see a positive value.
Right.
I can't just keep it to myself, because it makes no sense to keep it to myself. Anyway, that's
right.
My God, thank you, Enolia. On this beginning of 2022, I think there was what we call awakening for this.
Yes.
It's awakening, but it's also validation. And I'm hoping that whoever is listening as well, if you can and you didn't do it this time, go back to the recording and listen. Take the time to do the exercise and see what comes up for you, because it's profound. It tells you whether you like it or not, because it tells you where your priorities are. And I
Exactly.
think that, as you say, when you go back to your own personal leadership, that's what that is.
Exactly.
Okay, so that was my first time playing the guinea pig on one of the shows. So it's a good thing that I didn't see something I totally did not like, or that I had to explore a lot more in order to figure out how am I gonna be that. So thank you,
Yes.
thank you, thank you. For those who know me, I am all about boundaries. So therefore, I just have to ask you, what boundary have you implemented in your personal life that
Hmm.
has or even your professional life that has created the most personal growth for you?
What a great question. And wow, what boundary have I implemented? I think that the boundary that I've implemented is that I stopped being the person that is just, okay, this is going to sound funny. I stopped being that person that just lives life. And I became that person that I set a boundary for myself that says, I need to be more of the observer. I need to stop being just in it, going through the motions, flustered, reacting here, reacting there. This happened to me, that happened to me. I stopped that.
Mhm.
And the boundary that I put in place that has significantly changed my life is becoming more of the observer.
Yeah.
And that I can watch and I can see my life and I can notice what's taking place and I can see a door that opens and I can choose whether I go through it or not. And then I can enter in, do what I need to do, and exit out without all of the emotional baggage.
Yeah.
And that has been a such a huge change in my life that really that is what I share and that's what I teach. You know? So yeah,
And
that has been the biggest shift and the biggest boundary. And what I put around is just stop the emotional. It's the emotional lead.
mhm. And I guess it's interesting because you're saying you're talking about becoming more of an observer, but I guess for me, it's about when I'm hearing you, it's about releasing some
Mm-hmm.
of the control that we put into situations. So when I'm so emotionally invested in certain things, it's as if I lose sight of the bigger picture. And
Mm.
that's anyway. That's
Well,
my
it's
own
interesting
journey.
that you
That's what
say
I've
that.
noticed. Mm?
It's really interesting that you say that because for me, what it is that I observe the bigger picture. I don't lose
Okay.
it. Now I'm consciously going, well, why am I in it? Because I'm not seeing the bigger picture. Okay, come up here. Stop
Yes,
being in here. Come
that's
up
it.
here. Take a look. So we're kind of saying the same things, but
Yeah,
we just, approach it a little bit differently.
yeah,
I want to look at the bigger picture all the time instead of always being in it because before I was so busy being in it, I never knew what the bigger picture was.
and the funny part is when you live in that smaller picture, or when you're let your emotion dictate what
Mm-hmm.
you see and what you take on, what it does, it feels as though the whole world revolves around me. And then, I don't know, no matter how selfish you want to be, yeah, the whole world doesn't revolve around any one of us. Whether you are the prime minister, the president, or a mother, or whichever, it never revolves around one person. It's always a
Exactly.
combination of all those energies that actually make something come to the surface. And if we're lucky, we can live that energy and feel, how could I explain, understand my true role into that conversation, into that exchange, into that relationship. Because I remember I used to be the person who would come in and try and save everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, heck no, that is tiring. So, no, 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 no. I will observe. If there's anything I need to do, I will take the smaller space that I can take in someone else's reality so that they could experience their own reality. Because sometimes it feels as though we're so invested in other people's reality that for years I had to remind myself I cannot want something for someone more than they want it for themselves.
You're exactly right. And I actually call this I call it the triangle of disempowerment. We are perpetrators, right? And we can perpetrate the rescuer, we can perpetrate the victim, or we can just perpetrate.
Okay.
And I love what you said, because that was me too. Oh, I can fix it. I can save them. I can change the course. But if they don't want it, then you're disempowering them more.
Absolutely.
Because some people are supposed to have certain experiences so that they can learn the lesson. And if you're taking the lesson away by saving too quickly, then nothing's learned. And then guess what? It repeats anyway.
Patterns.
It repeats itself again.
Yep, patterns. And I think in my journey, I got to a point where when certain things seem to be coming back, things that you thought you had dealt with, it's just like, okay, what is the lesson I haven't learned? What am I supposed to hear, see, feel into this reality so that I can set it aside and let it go? And that's what you call being a bit of an observer, and not just be so invested that it's just like, oh my God, this is happening again. And I totally agree with you. Sometimes when we meddle in other people's journey, we actually slow their growth.
Yes,
So
we do.
if there's anything I can tell anyone here listening, take time, step back a little, gives the other person time to figure themselves out. Could be a 24-hour. Let them be. So, and that's the part where if you don't, you might find yourself with your 75-year-old son still living in your basement.
Exactly.
No, and
I would add to that, learn to listen. And when you learn to listen, it doesn't mean that in the commiseration of listening, you take on their burden. Okay? Listen. Don't respond. Silence is okay. Let them speak. And if they invite you for their opinion, sometimes the smartest thing to say is, you know what? I think you already know the answer to that. And you don't need to hear that from me. This is about your journey, making your decisions, and me giving you my opinion doesn't help you assert and trust yourself.
Yeah.
You need to do this, and you got this. And sometimes that's the kind of friend that you need to be when you're sitting there and you're playing that role of listener, and you're playing that person who's letting someone cry on their shoulder. You can cry, but you're going to figure this out yourself. And that's empowering.
Yeah. And it's recognizing that my role is to lead my ship.
Yes.
Their role is to lead their own ship. So if I keep leading somebody else's ship, guess what? They're staying on board.
Yes.
For way too long.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway,
Absolutely.
so between parenthood and leadership, to me, this is the portion where we come to that same realization that every single individual has to run their own journey.
They have to. They have to, because if they don't, the other side of that coin is that, well, you told me to do it. Well, you gave me that advice, and that advice is bad. So then they don't take ownership for anything that they've done.
Yeah.
And you gave them the carte blanche door to blame you because you gave all of this advice and said do it this way, and you thought it was the best way because you're offering what you thought was best, at least from your point of view, and it may not have been, or maybe it was destined for them to go through that problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree with you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. I am conscious of time, so therefore I'm gonna ask you, what would be one key message, let's say, that you want to leave with our listeners?
I want to leave with the listeners. You are worthy.
Oh.
I want you to trust yourself. None of us came here to play small. Do not play small in 2022. It is your time. It is your time to be grand. Be grand in your smile, grand in your gifts. Be grand in moving forward, and be grand in your endeavors. Make that vision grand. Because you got this.
You got this. You heard Enolia. She said, you got this. So how can people get in contact with you or hear about some of the activities you're involved in?
So they can get in contact with me. My best place is my website. Just check out my website. You'll see work with me. You'll see a lot of media that I do that's free of charge in terms of meditations and some of my smaller classworks. I do have master classes available there, and I am writing my book is complete. I am publishing my book. So if you want to sign up for my book, you can sign up on my website, and then I'll let you know as soon as it's published. I do hold workshops online, and so everything is going to be on the website. And then I do adhere to all of the other social medias. So I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter and I'm on Instagram, and you can see it all there. And there's not too many Enolias out there, so I'm not hard to track.
We like that when we find people easy. Thank you very much, Enolia. This has been a brilliant conversation for me. I know I'm taking away a few things that are totally personal, but I'm also hoping that the listeners take something positive to start off the 2022 as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.